Hello and welcome back to another video here on the channel. A little bit different today, or well, maybe not too different for you. A little bit later than normal for me recording this, but we've got a fair few things to talk about. It's been 10 or so days since we last done one of these. It's been a hectic few days, week or so, so apologies for the time delay in this one. But there's a few things to discuss. We've at least had some time to build up some things to talk about. It's a Wednesday night right now, it's 9:15 over here in Canada and Ontario, so I'm recording a little later than usual, and due to that I will be having a beer during this. I'm going to be enjoying Grain and Grit. It's a brewery in Hamilton if you're interested. I'm not in Hamilton, but someone brought it back for me, so I'm going to have this whilst I'm doing this. Apologies for the sound, but I'm quite looking forward to it. Anyway, we've got a fair few things to talk about today, and we'll start to go through them here for you real quick. So anyway, we'll go to the video. We'll try and keep this a little bit more regular. Hopefully things will be quieting down a little bit for me over the next week or so we can start doing these a little bit more consistently. So yeah, we'll start getting into the news over the last week. Obviously there's been a few things that have happened. Let me get the right tab up. Alright, so good place to start, I think. Elton John performing at Vicarage Road. Obviously not necessarily Watford Football Club related in some ways, although there were a few things that come out of it. Obviously the kit release, or third kit, was shown by Elton John in the first performance. But in general, I just thought it was worth touching on because I think a lot of Watford fans went to this. And I think it was a nice feel-good occasion. It's a shame, as I said during the week, it's one of the few, not one of the few occasions, but it's definitely one of the occasions which emphasised how much I miss being around the club in some capacity, and yeah, felt a long way away from it for that. But no, it seemed like everyone had a good time, so obviously pleased for everyone that went to that, and obviously great to see Elton John back at Vicarage Road, and as he said, perhaps would like to have some involvement with the club again, probably in an ambassador role. Rather than anything too football related, but he's obviously a club legend, so everyone that went there sounds like he had a good time, and from everything I've seen it looked good. Obviously a few clips of Elton discussing or talking about the team, and I think he might have even dedicated a song to Rob Edwards as well, so yeah, good occasion, and I think it made a few maybe feel a little bit more positive about the future, even though it was obviously non-football related. I think there were definitely some positives to take from that, and enjoyable. This is off duty as a double dry hopped IPA, Citra IPA. It's pretty good. It's nice. Anyway, moving on. Next thing we'll talk about related to Watford again, a little bit away from the pitch for us in some respects, but it was the announcement of clubs looking to join with Reading, who wrote to the other Championship clubs with a proposal and a ticket arrangement for the fans to have ticket prices capped at £20, which is nice to see. Obviously, capping ticket prices, everyone wants that for away fans, and yeah, Watford are one of the teams that went along with that and kind of agreed to the terms, and I think that's a positive. Obviously, quite a few clubs did, but us being one of them, good sign. Again, not massively on the pitch related stuff, but thought we'd cover it. Next, this is kind of beginning of the week. There's a little bit of discussion around this one. We played Cambridge in the behind closed doors friendly, and we lost 3-1. Clearly, it was a decently strong team. Cambridge fielded a reasonably strong team too, but obviously lots of substitutions for both sides. But we did come out losers at home, training ground, 3-1. The reaction was a little bit up and down, I'd say, on Twitter afterwards. I think there's quite a few that are disappointed with the result, especially with the calibre of players that are on display there, and obviously new coach. A lot of good feeling around the new coach. Perhaps some were thinking this is a example of how much work he has to do. Now I think we have to kind of be a little bit kind of considered in how we kind of feel about the pre-season friendly, especially the first one. I think it's really important to understand. First game pre-season, you're looking to work through some patterns you've been working on, some early developmental stuff, especially with a new coach. You're looking to get some movement, just kind of get a few things, get some motion going, get a few touches of the ball. Semi-competitive situation, definitely can't stress that enough. It's not a competitive situation. You're not going to be overexposing your body in terms of going into challenges and pushing for the ball. It's a little bit lighter. It's almost similar to watching under 23 games at times. It is very considered, and the result isn't necessarily or even really slightly important in the grand scheme of things. Even in the micro details, it's not important. You're looking back at these games, you're looking at the individual actions of the game rather than this kind of broader view of the result in this one. So I wouldn't draw too much from this at all. I think it's about as relevant as losing to the under-23s in a practice game, in an inter-club game. I don't think it's relevant, and it's something we shouldn't get too frustrated or worried about. Obviously, it's an opportunity to see some new players or players that are trying to push that first team from the under-23s or academy and so on. But it's not something which is a large concern at all. I again, can't stress that enough. I wouldn't be too worried about this one. And we'll start to see how kind of we develop as we go through the preseason games. As they become closer to the season, you can start to draw a little bit more from them as we start to implement some elements that we hadn't earlier on, and we start to expect a little bit more from the players. But right now, not so much. But kind of moving on to the next part, kind of continuing on with that preseason conversation. The club have gone to Austria, the first team squad have gone to Austria along with the academy guys, under 23 guys that might not make the squad but are around that first team right now. But as we see here in this image, Adam Massener, one of those that didn't travel with the team. There was kind of discussion as to whether he would be staying or going. It looked like he was going into the season, and then him being involved in this friendly maybe people wonder if he's going to be sticking around. But it looks like he's not going to be with him. Not joining the team in Austria obviously indicates that he's not part of Rob Edwards' plans, and we're looking for a new home for Massener after being a decent servant for the club. But someone who will be joining, who wasn't in the pre-season friendly against Cambridge, is Yace Asprilla. We see in this article here on The Athletic from Adam Leventhal, where he talks about Asprilla heading to meet the team in Austria and join up with that pre-season training, which is really important. I think he's got a decent part to play this season. He could definitely push himself into being a starter or kind of having a big impact in this team. Only young, 18 years old, but shown a lot of quality, and he's someone I've been trying to watch more of over the last few weeks, but have kept an eye on through last season too, and shows a lot of promise. I think he's kind of up there in terms of João Pedro and how much he showed, maybe even a little bit more in terms of his domestic appearances, but a lot of promise there, and him joining up is a good indication. Again, the club expecting to be playing this season, expecting to have a role, and him getting as many minutes or as much time around the first team as possible ahead of an important season, a big season for him potentially, is only positive. So that's really good news, especially when there's been a little bit of not mixed signals, but we've not had too much clarity necessarily on his situation at times. So yeah, that's positive news. Training camp in Austria. Been doing that for a number of years now. Club have been going out there, and we're all quite used to the views and the pictures we see around the training camp, and it seems to be something they've kind of found a bit of a groove with, and I'm sure they'll continue with that for a while. So good to see they're kind of underway with all that. Hopefully in the next few days, we'd like nice to see another video similar to what we saw when Edwards first joined that first day of pre-season training. We've got to see a little bit behind the scenes, a little bit of the drills, a little bit of discussion with the players. It'd be nice to see some more of that. Hopefully we get some Edwards mic'd up content over the next few days. So what we're going to do next? Yeah, so since we discussed, or since we talked last, or spoke on here last, Vacuum Bio has been confirmed. We all knew it. It's kind of not exactly a well-kept secret, but he's been confirmed as a Watford FC player. And yeah, he's the first player to join this off-season. Striker, we discussed him a bit already, but I kind of put a graphic together a little bit to kind of get somewhat more of an idea. But yeah, 25-year-old Ivorian, 6'1", physical player. I went and watched some of his games, some individual actions. I watched 3 of his games, 2 full games, and then a third partial game, as well as multiple of his actions across the last few seasons to get a real solid understanding of what kind of player he is. And he's an interesting one. He plays long. long limb length. He stretches the ball. He's quite dynamic on the ball. He can run with it. Big long strides. He's maybe not cutting as much, but he's running with that ball and carrying it. A lot of his opportunities are coming from those situations where he's breaking the defensive line through a good run, good pass through the middle, when he's able to latch on and kind of test the keeper, and that's where he likes to play. Also, though, strong in the air. You can look through some of these stats. Per 90 is kind of putting up some good numbers in all areas, really. But goals per 90, XG per 90 in the Belgian league, up right towards the top end. Getting lots of shots away, conversion rate's good, headed goals right towards the top end. He's getting on the end of the balls, he's in the box, he's an active forward, and I think that's something we need. Whether he's a target man or not, I'm not convinced he's necessarily a target man. He can play with his back to goal, but you like him facing goal, you like him being a threat. He can bring others into play, but maybe not so much as a back to goal target man. However, I think he adds something different. We don't have this sort of player, and I think he should be a decent asset. All things point towards him being a good fit for this team, and I think I can see why Edwards would be keen on this profile of player. I think it's something we lacked, and I think he'll be an interesting one. I think it's a decent gamble for the fee that was talked about, being a couple £1 million. So that's good. Good that's confirmed. Next one, which we've kind of also known about or heard things about for a few days now, is Barcelona striker Minaj. On loan at Spiezzo last season in Serie A. A little bit different here in the numbers. Again, I watched some of Ray, try and get an understanding of what sort of player. Another 25-year-old, a little bit bigger bodied again, 6 foot. Albanian, I believe he holds an Italian passport as well. Another striker, right-footed. A little bit different sort of profile. A little bit more energy off the ball, I'd say. Kind of puts himself about a little bit. Maybe a bit more rash in front of goal. I find his finishing a little bit inconsistent, but what he can do well, good control, good first touch. He's good under pressure. He can hold on to it and he can keep the ball and keep the play going. Whether or not he's going to end up in a goal scoring opportunity, it varies. Back to goal, he's good at spinning out, getting a shot away. He puts his body on the line to get to the ball, try and get shots away. Takes a fair few. As you can see, the conversion rate's not great, but strong in the air, and decent at getting onto the ball and taking chances on, having opportunities to get at his opponent. What I wasn't sure about as much, he got caught out on the ball a little bit, maybe held onto it a little bit too long at times. But I think there's some upside to this player, especially we kind of, the reports have been varying, but it seems the most likely situation is that Barcelona are passing Minaj on for free with a sell-on clause of unknown, but a pretty high sell-on clause, which is, we've started to see that happen a few times now. With clubs looking to kind of capitalise down the road on some of these players. Now, Minaj is a little bit different in some ways. It's 25. It's a bit of a gamble, but for Barcelona, maybe it's one worth taking. However, again, the same as Bayo, I think he offers something a little different. Now, I know we're going to get to the kind of transfer approach in general in a second after we talk about the next potential target. But right now, I think it offers another profile of player we don't currently have, and it's a supplement to the striking options we do currently have. So, jury's out on him. I'm a little bit more confident in Bayo right now, although Minaj could be that guy. There's so many factors to play to kind of work out whether he fits or not. I think we definitely have to give him the opportunity and kind of see a little bit more of him in pre-season. He's definitely an interesting one, but I look forward to seeing more. Obviously, 5 goals in Serie A last season is a higher level than what we're going to be playing. But yeah, remains to be seen, but interesting, and it's not been confirmed yet either, we should say, but there have been multiple reports, including Adam Leventhal as well. Apparently he's in England, ready to go through his medical and sign for the club. So we'll keep an eye on that one. Next, and possibly the most controversial, even though the first two have had some controversy around them, using Voices of the Vic here again, Watford have emerged as a major rivals to Middlesbrough in the battle to sign Newcastle United striker Dwight Gale. Watford officials have spent last week discussing Gale's position with their counterparts at Newcastle. Now, this is an interesting one. I can see where this can kind of draw some discontent. Obviously, Dwight Gale's a well-known player to Watford fans, or English football fans, especially those that are fans of the Football League. He's been around for a while and he's been quite productive in the Championship. He's been one of those players that struggled to bridge that gap between Championship and top-level Premier League football. obviously Newcastle situation, they don't really have a need for Dwight Gale. And he's not played much football in the last couple of years. I think maybe 90 minutes I saw was quoted earlier. He's completed, maybe 2 goals, not been productive, not been having the time on the field, had some injuries. Interesting. There's a talk of a loan, not a permanent deal, which obviously would be the most suitable. But whose decision is this? We're not entirely sure. Is it even true? We don't know for sure at this point. But this brings us to kind of a larger discussion point in regards to recruitment in general. And I've seen some criticism over the last week of the approach from the club, whether that be through not spending money or the types of players we're looking at. But one of the consistent criticisms I've seen has been that of the players we've been bringing in or looking to bring in, Bio, Minaj, players that are non-homegrown. Obviously, when we sold Hernandez, we discussed the rule of 11, that being a motivating factor, a part of the reason as to why we sold Hernandez. Obviously, there comes some criticism after that when we move on from him, who's a young player that we had some promise around, and lots were kind of quite hopeful about his role this season, to 2 potential non-homegrown players. Where does that balance out? And look, the thing is, we can't really look at the individuals too much. We have to look at the squad building on a wider scale. Obviously, part of that interview with Gioretta, where he talks about the rule of 11, he also discusses the fact that Rob Edwards was looking for a different style, different profile of player. Minaj and Bio are very different to Hernandez, and if that's what he feels is best, then so be it. We try and give him a little bit more control. Supposedly, that's what we've been told, been led to believe is happening. But more so than that, I've seen a fair amount, I shouldn't say a lot, it's maybe a bit harsh, but a fair few people suggesting that, this is kind of ridiculous. We're saying we're giving Rob Edwards some control, yet, are these Rob Edwards players, if Rob Edwards watching Spieza and watching Belgian football and saying, I want Bio, I want Minaj? No, he's not doing that, but that's not also the job we've given him. When it comes to giving someone like Rob Edwards, your head coach, the ability to have input on recruitment, it's not so much a case of let Rob Edwards come forward with players he likes. It's not his job. He's got a lot on his plate. We kind of discussed this a little bit on Twitter. I spoke to a few of you about this, but the job of a head coach is it's demanding, and giving them that head coach role is to focus them on a more singular, more focused objective, rather than having them spread so thin. If you're going to include these guys in recruitment, the best thing to do is have that open communication with your recruitment team, your heads of recruitment, your scouting network, your analysts, all these departments, all these things come together to kind of work in a cohesive unit to discuss. Rob, what do you need? What is it you're looking for to make this team? What you want? What sort of player do you need? And Rob can sit down. He can have that conversation. He can discuss. I'm looking for this sort of player. The recruitment team then can go away, draw up a list of targets, and come back to him and say, look, this is the short list. Here's the information on them. Here's some footage of them. You sit down as you see fit and kind of go through and see what you like, see what traits you like. And then from there, they're kind of working with the club to see if they can facilitate some of these deals. It's a complicated, multi-layered process which can take time, especially when you're integrating a new approach, especially if we are allowing for more input from the head coach. We are going to take a little bit more time on occasion to get some of these deals done, especially when we start talking about fees and other things. But if we've given a short list to Rob Edwards and he's looked at these players and he's identified Bio and Minaj as players he likes, then these are Rob Edwards players. These are as close as we're going to get. And honestly, these are as close as we want to get, because I think that's the perfect synergy, the perfect balance to having success. Doesn't mean that we won't fall kind of down short in other angles, kind of being too agent dependent or whatever. It's possible, for sure. But it's the right direction to head in if that is what we're doing. Is Dwight Gale one of these guys? I don't know, it's hard to say. We can only talk about the players that we definitely have signed for sure to be, confirmed, or the ones we've had strong sources communicating with us, like, Leventhal and Minaj. That would indicate to me the club have given him these players or presented these players, along with plenty of others. There'll be at least, we're talking about at least 10 per position here, minimum for a professional club in terms of identifying targets. And Rob's looked at these and said that these are 2 that he's interested in. So I think we have to bear that in mind when it comes to criticism of our recruitment. Plus, it's still not done yet. We've still got players in the books. We still have the likes of Ismail Assar and Emmanuel Dennis to move on from. And I think, for me, one of the issues I think we have is I'm not entirely sure that the club are completely renowned to not be using either one of them completely next season. I think there's a possibility that one of them, not both, I would imagine, but potentially one, more likely Ismaila Sarr at this point, is still around next season, because right now they could ideally, I mean, they haven't put down a big fee, they haven't offered as many big fees as perhaps people wanted, because these deals haven't gone through yet. However, if they were certain, what these players are going no matter what, we're going to get them off, even if it's slightly below what we value them as, we have the freedom to spend. The fact that we haven't as much might indicate that they are thinking, worst case scenario, Emmanuel Dennis will probably get a fee we're kind of comfortable with. Ismaila Sarr, we're not going to recoup that money we spent. Perhaps we feel that another season, still got time on the contract, another season we could even raise that value a little bit more, and he can help us like he did last time. It's a possibility, and I asked Andrew French this. Let me see if I can actually find what we said here, because I know that I did discuss this briefly. Yeah, so I asked Andrew French, obviously a reporter we've all been quite fond of. He's been asking some good questions for the Watford Observer. So I asked him, any idea if the club feel there's a possibility they won't be able to move on from Sarr? Is there a chance he ends up playing for us this season? And as you can see, Andrew says, got a piece that will appear in the next day or so that would deal with that. So, maybe that's an option. Maybe we are looking at these supplementary strikers because we see Ismaila Sarr as being an option. Who knows? It's unclear, but we're going through a difficult balancing act right now. So we have to try and find ways to make things work, and this might be one of those elements. And then the next out that really is to talk about is kind of the last out that's been confirmed as far as I can think in regards to recent discussion or recent goings on has been Josh King. We all expected it, but it's been confirmed. Josh King has moved away from the club. He's gone, and didn't quite work out exactly how we hoped, but I think we all kind of expected this to kind of turn out this way once we had relegation confirmed. So I think we covered most things. There's still probably a few aspects that kind of developing deals and stuff going on, which will be coming up shorter or closely soon, I should say. We'll be discussing them further as they kind of transpire. We'll be a little bit quicker on these once things are confirmed, especially with kind of new deals coming through in terms of the season starting not too long. So we've got deals around the corner. I'm sure we've got things underway. Loan deals I think will be completed relatively shortly. There's one or two which I think are in the process, and I expect to see that done within the next week or so, potentially. So let's have a look and see. I think that's it for now. So we'll keep it a little bit shorter today. I think it's shorter. And I guess thanks for watching. And I will update you soon enough and be back with another video. Please come and follow me over on @Watford Analytics and also the Watford Buzz podcast. Tom, Matt and myself will be recording as well. We recorded another episode this week and released it, so go and listen to that if you haven't already. We discussed a giveaway which we had. There was a winner for the giveaway. We'll also be announcing a new giveaway for the next podcast. We'll be discussing it. We've had a good little donation there for the next one, which hopefully a few of you will be interested in. I think it's arguably better than Marlon King's sock. I think it is. Hopefully you guys can get involved. So thanks for watching again. As I said, go follow me at Watford Analytics @Jordan Weimer on Twitter. If you have any questions, I've got more to do. I've got questions. Apologies. Okay, I'm sorry if you've stopped watching at this point. That's my bad, because I did get some questions I was going to answer. Okay, bear with me. This is what happens when I record in the evening. Okay. Alright, here we go. Okay, if we play, from Peter Johnson here, if we play Hungbo, Austria and some of the other youngsters, what can we expect from style of play? So I think in regards to those two, position that you're looking at Hungbo as potentially a wing-back option, Austria as an attacking midfielder, potentially striker. But what I think you're expecting, and one of the reasons why I think they will be involved, is youthful exuberance. They're going to be energetic. As we've already seen Rob Edwards and seen discussed, he requires that work off the ball, and this is something that young players can really offer, especially at this stage. They're hungry, they're coachable, and they want to be playing, and they're mouldable, and we've seen success with Edwards like that. So I think you're looking at off the ball work, and just that excitement to be on the pitch and contribute. I think we need that energy. We've had some staleness at times. And I think introducing those young players is really positive for the club, and I think having someone like Hungbo, obviously academy, he's done well on loan. Also Austria, who's someone that's same sort of age range, but you've brought in. It's a great combination. I think those two are good ones to discuss there, Peter, and I think they'll be ones that hopefully will be playing a large part, or have a significant role. And yeah, I think it'll be exciting style of play is what I'm hoping for, and I think arguably we could expect Mickey Smiley Abrams, as we like to call him. It seems we won't be having too many incomings this season, which is fine if we get them right and combine with the youth we have, etc. If we made 5 signings, how many in each position would you want? And do you have 5 preferred names? Names is a tricky one because it's kind of a domino effect. Depends on who you bring in other positions. So names we'll discuss maybe a little bit at a later date. If we try, I do want to go over some potential possible targets soon. So maybe won't mention the names just yet, because I want to make sure that I'm accurate on those ones, and they're ones that we kind of discuss further. But in terms of position, I think as of right now, I still feel like a wing back is necessary, centre back, a central midfielder, potentially 2 central midfielders. No, it's 1 central midfielder and 1 or 2 strikers, depending on what we plan to do in other positions. This is the problem with the chain reaction of positions or signings, sorry, and the impact they have on positions. If you sign a striker which can also play a little bit deeper, or maybe you sign 2 strikers and that allows Pedro to be an attacking midfielder. It's kind of hard to say, but I think we definitely have to cover the position of wing back, centre back, midfielder and striker. The question is, if we're going to lose one of those, it's probably going to be wing back. I think we might try and ride with Femenia, with using someone else as a backup, whether that be Hungbo or potentially Ngakia. Well, I'm not quite sure on that. If I was to stretch and say 5, I'd say 2 strikers, centre mid, right wing back and centre back. Nick DA, if we don't recruit any additional centre backs based on the eye and data tests, what strengths and weaknesses are noticeable based on the expected style of play? So in regards to, so strengths, it depends on what we line up with, what we start with. I think for me, if we look to include some players a little bit outside the box, we discussed previously on the Watford Buzz podcast and also on here, I think Jeremy Ngakia is a really good fit for that right centre back position. I think he allows us to play to the strengths of the system. I think he fits what Edwards is trying to do. Having that ability to carry the ball, we want to find ways to progress the ball from those outside positions, whether that's passing or carrying. And I think having a little bit of a balance is good. Left you might have Samir, who I think is capable of doing so if he stays around. It looks like at the moment he is. If not, I'd imagine that's because he's replaced or someone else is brought in. But Ngakia carrying the ball, I think is a strength. I think having that flexibility to finding ways to get the ball forwards, not ending up playing in that dreaded U across the back line, the ball kind of flowing back and forth without being able to get the ball into midfield, into the wing backs. I think Ngakia allows us something different. Having said that, if he wasn't played there, then I think the weakness potentially that's definitely noticeable to me, both through the eye test and through the data, which shows issues progressing the ball. If you have the Cabaselli on the outside, Trista Kong if he was to have to play on the outside centre back, or Sirialta, progressing the ball, can we find routes forward? Can we find the midfielders, or are we going to be stuck in that U and passing back to the keeper and playing long? I think we have to be smart here and find a way out of it, and I think we do have the option there, whether that's signing someone that can play that role on the right hand side, that right centre back. We have plenty of combative centre backs for the central spot, but finding ways to get the ball forward, and I think that's Ngakia. So the strength and weaknesses kind of full on choice in my opinion. Next, Hansen Ho, what's up with Turkish international Thiago Kuchka? It's not every day that someone who couldn't do it in League One gets a call up from a relatively strong country like Turkey. Are we underrating him as a club, and what's the plan for him this year? It's a good question. I do kind of agree. Like it's interesting that he got the call up. I was curious. think that was some thunder outside. I was curious too. I went and looked, actually prior to this question as it happened, but I made sure I looked a little bit more to try and answer it. But it's tough. I think he's a decent finisher, and I think that's maybe what Turkey like about him. He can get a shot away. He's a strong finisher. Both feet work quite well in the box. But for me, I thought he looked quite stiff. I didn't think he looked like a good athlete to me at all. That was my question with him. Not great. Doesn't possess a great amount of pace, which isn't necessarily a deal breaker by any means. Lots of players don't. But I thought he was stiff on the turn. His hips moved quite poorly. I thought he struggled to get into position, open his body up at times. I went back and watched some of his football in League One, and I just didn't click. And I think a lot of that is down to the athlete. I think he needs to develop as an athlete. Whether the club kind of get him working, individually, or find a way to make him a little sharper. Because right now he doesn't move like a pro footballer for me, and that's the difference. Whether they feel that Turkey feel like it's a decent investment, he can progress, and giving him some international caps or the ability to be around that team is important for him, perhaps. But as of right now, it's not sure. In terms of our plan, I think we have to loan him and find out what he is, and give him that option. Because I don't think he's going to be near that first team this year, unfortunately. But it's an interesting one. It's definitely a strange situation, which I'm intrigued to see how it goes about. Robert Sheldon, what do we know about Minaj and where he might fit in at Watford? So we discussed that a little bit already. I think he'll be a supplementary forward at this point. At the moment, it seems like Pedro and Bayo are the two starters as of now. But I think Minaj can offer something. Late on in games, he can press, he can turn the ball over, he can be aggressive, he can be physical, and he's someone that there's no reason why he can't force his way into the starting team. I mean, he played plenty of minutes in Serie A. He could be a starting striker, but he's not necessarily the goal scorer. I think he's someone that you use. Maybe a battering ram is a bit harsh, because he has got more touch and more finesse than that. But I think based on the system we'll be utilising, I think a lot of his off-the-ball work will get him into the team. And I think his goals will keep him in the team if he can find them. I did have another question actually in the DMs here from Watford Biz. Has anyone realised that Hungbo is left-footed? With Camara and Sema mainly playing left wing-back on his Udinese loan, does that provide enough cover at left wing-back? Yeah, I think it does. I think Sema and Kamara are good options there, particularly Kamara, of course. Hungbo, I think the thing with Hungbo is you can get away with playing a player on their weaker foot or their weaker side at wing back if you do have the natural width and if they're comfortable playing with their weak foot. Obviously, there'll be some tendency to cut in from Hungbo onto his left. We've seen that he's played a lot of minutes from the right-hand side, from a wing position, of course, but I think he could be adept enough to play on his right and to fulfill that position and still use his left when necessary. And honestly, it's not the worst thing. It's actually, it can be an interesting tendency or trait to have a wing-back which can cut in and use that left foot and use that kind of that cut inside, the carry of the ball. It doesn't have to be, providing they're adequate with the right foot or the weaker foot, it doesn't have to be a hindrance. It could be an interesting benefit, especially if you do have some flexibility. There's no reason you can't adjust. It doesn't have to be a carbon copy of what happened at Forest. If you are, say, playing with Ngakia at right centre-back who's able to carry the ball, why not give them the opportunity to overlap a little bit and Hungbo come inside? We've seen back threes where the centre-back will overlap. Why not have an underlapping centre-back or another overlapping centre-back and have Hungbo come inside? There's ways you can work with it, and I think the thing with Hungbo which is important for us and why he might get minutes is, as of right now, we don't have a great backup option to Kiko Femenia, and we know that Femenia's injury record, even last time in the Championship a couple of years ago, he was rarely finishing games, coming off quite early, missed a few soft tissue injuries, hamstring injuries. I expect to see more of that. They don't recover. They don't stop happening at Kiko's age, and the amount of minutes he's got in his legs, I don't expect that to change. So I think it's just more of an opportunity for Hungbo at right back more than anything. If we had better cover at right wing back and less at left wing back, then sure, I think Hungbo is more naturally suited in some ways to the left just because of that left foot. But just based on our current squad makeup, I think it's likely we see him be covered for the right, but also he could be covered for both. Now I think that's all we have for questions. I just want to double check and make sure. Yeah. Okay, yeah, no, I think that's good. That's pretty much everything. Yeah, as I said, that's it. So yeah, thanks for watching again. It was maybe a shorter one. I kind of did the kind of outro closing off part of the video. So if you're wondering why there's an extra 10 minutes at the end and you've still watched through, then that's why. So thanks for watching, those that stayed to the end. Thanks for the questions. Appreciate them. As always, get in touch, have a conversation. You can ask a question anonymously. You can do that if you want to. We can have a discussion. We don't even have to have a discussion which is talked about on here. We can just have a private discussion, talk about things. Always welcome. If you have any suggestions for the podcast, for the channel, then feel free to get in touch. Please like and subscribe. It helps other people see it. Or if you didn't like it, then dislike it. Tell me why you didn't like it, or just don't. Either way is good. So thanks for watching again, and I'll be back very soon for the next one. Thank you.